Even though it's the Wonder Club, has been in and out of the Ghana Premier League. This season, you were doing very well. Then all of a sudden, you didn't seem to be performing again.
Oh, but to be fair, if you look at where we came from, we were, as we have always known and said and complained, that our being relegated was not fair. We took the matter to court, and during the NC, Congress agreed that King Faisal and Olympics should be restored to their rightful place.
Yes.
So, having come from Division 1 back to where we believe that we should be, it was incumbent upon us to prove to everybody that we deserve to be in the Premiership. Of course, we set a target for ourselves that we would finish top 4. It didn't happen because, as you all know, our coach fell ill halfway through the tournament. We were doing very well.
Yes,
and
you're doing very, very well.
Ill for a very long time. But even in recovery, we still managed to finish top 6. At least for the first half of the table, we were there. So this morning, on behalf of Accra Great Olympics, I want to thank everybody who believed in us.
Hey, now, let me tell you something.
Believing in us, because we have proved to them that we are a Premiership side. And this time we have come to stay. Oli, why are you
I like your vim.
We have come to stay.
I like
Next
your
season,
vim. I like your vim, and
we are going to Africa.
You're going to Africa?
Operation Africa, here we come.
Hey, Oli Daddy, you're going to... I thought that Olympics was associated with, Wafu. You had won the Wafu, and you had become the Wonder Club of Ghana. Lots of myth about how you became the Wonder Club, as to whether you played with 12 players or not. We hear those kind of myths. But Africa, can you?
But you just said we are the Wonder Club. You will see signs and wonders.
But we know. I mean, your being Wonder Club is subjected to lots of myth as to whether you played with 12 players, with one player being substituted and coming back. Nobody knows.
Look. There is no evidence to that effect. There is no evidence. It's just that, you see, people, they want to be part of the club.
Okay.
And they are, because of the things they have said, they don't know how to even just come and say, oh, Olympics, we admire you really and truly. Can we join? And so they sit back and they concoct all these stories. We are the Wonder Club because we can do wonders.
Oh, okay.
And so far, we have shown you people, how do you come from Division 1 and then you rise to the top half of the table?
Great.
Just like that.
Okay, so I'm sure this time around, next season when we call you Oli Africa, it will be in place because you want to qualify for Africa.
Oh, definitely. Because right now we've seen that we are beyond GPL. Now we need to export our wonders abroad. First, we'll start with the African continent.
So let's get to other discussions now. And you were a member of the normalization committee, and so when your team, the normalization committee completed its work and held elections for a smooth takeover or handover, I'm sure you were hoping we could finally have a full season. And here we are now. How does it feel knowing that we've had a full season of the Ghana Premier League?
Oh, honestly, I've and anybody who follows me on social media knows that, look, I've followed this thing keenly. And, it's just been our prayer that, look, what we came to do, we've handed over, and we're hoping that Ghana football is back. And I think to a large extent, we can say, yes, it is back. Of course, there are a few isolated incidents that give cause for concern. But I'm sure the GFA has sufficient disciplinary procedures and investigative bodies to deal with those issues. So I will not go into those matters. But I think on the whole, the season was successful. We can say that somehow, some way, well, the love is being brought back. And so let's hope for the best and see what next season also brings. Of course, it will not be exciting without Accra Great Olympics. I mean, you have to hand it to us that we are the most exciting club in this country.
So let's look at the lows and highs. You've talked about some few concerns, even though they've been dealt with. I think it'd be important for us to also know what those concerns were, and that could help shape our league going forward. What are some of those concerns that you saw or had that you believe the Ghana Football Association dealt with?
Well, I was a bit appalled to see that still, I mean, we have people invading the pitch, hooliganism, chasing referees. I mean, it doesn't, it doesn't look good. As a people, I think we've come too far. Ghana is too sophisticated in the area of football for us to be still seeing these things. And also the allegations of match fixing. I say allegations because they are yet to be even proved, and the sanctions, if necessary, handed down. So, but I hope and pray that the allegations turn out to be false, because it will be very sad that we still have these things in our game. It mars the game.
Okay. What stood out for you in the just ended Ghana Premier League?
For me, the fact that the Gamashi Derby, I can say, was perhaps the biggest match of this season. All along, it has always been Haskotoko matches. But I can assure you that I was at the stadium to watch Olympics and Hearts play. I think that now the myth that Hearts and Kotoko are the biggest teams in Ghana is gradually fading away. Now we have to look at some of the other teams and the days that they play, even the crowd, the euphoria, the mood of the country. So I think it is a good thing. It means that our game is progressing. It's opening up. It has gone beyond. Our GPL has gone beyond just Hearts and Kotoko.
Okay.
There are other teams that are also doing well, and their supporters are also making the teams, big. And it's also making the whole football enterprise exciting in the country. I think it's a positive.
Great. Now, please hold on. We'll get back to you. We're hoping to get to Henry Asantitrum, who's a spokesperson for the GFA. But I have George Ado Jr. and Oreku Ampofu here with me. Let me start off with you, George. So now talks about, the Gamashi Derby, the fact that Hearts and Olympics drew, huge crowd to the Accra Sports Studio, and for her that stood up. Something you agree? And the fact that the Ghana Premier League is moved beyond Accra, Hearts of Oak, and Asante Kotoko. George, can you hear me?
Well, I think that the Accra. Yeah, can you hear me? I can hear
yes,
you.
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead. Yes, George, go ahead. We can hear you. Okay, I think, let me come to you, Oreku. We'll try and get back to George shortly. But, you've been covering the Ghana Premier League. How's it been for you? And would you also agree that the Hearts of Oak Olympics game was like the biggest?
Well, to some extent, yes. I would say I agree. And even when you look at the digital space, that's the only metric that we have, because for most parts of the season, fans were not allowed, and even when they were allowed, it was just 10%. And if you look at the numbers, the 1-1 draw, particularly the most recent one, the Olympics versus Hearts, that's the second fixture between the two sides. That match had over 32,000 views. That's for the highlights on Star Times page. So it just tells you that it gives you an idea of the interest, especially in that fixture. And you could feel that euphoria when you're around the stadium, that perhaps this was a proper derby. to really challenge for who should be the land guard of Accra. And I think that Great Olympics largely contributed to how big this fixture was this season. And that's because if you look at, in the previous seasons, after about 17 years, so the last time that they were able to beat Heart of Oak in the league before this season was in 2004. And so beating them in the first round and ending that, poor run suggested that perhaps they are closing that gap. And, they had already spent time at the top. And so Heart of Oak wanted to get the revenge. Unfortunately, they were not able to get it. And Olympics, I think, put up a good fight. So Olympics coming up has really helped, the fixture between the two sides.
Let me get to you now, George, if you can hear me. So what for you stood out in the 2020-2021 Ghana Premier League? All right, George. Okay, I think we can get George. So let's get back to you now. And
can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you. Yes, yes. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So I wanted to react to now made the point about the Accra Hearts of Oak and Great Olympics game being the greatest.
Yes.
I think that Kumasi Asante Kotoko Accra Hearts of Oak could still have beaten the Olympics one, but because there were a lot of restrictions. Remember that the COVID-19 restrictions were pretty high at the time, and so they were very, very, very serious about it. If they were not careful about the management of that Accra Hearts of Oak game, it would have definitely gone above the numbers that Accra Great Olympics Hearts of Oak gave us. But I think that the game, when you look at the two games, I think that the Hearts of Oak Olympics game sold much more in terms of excitement to the fans, and that's why it's still on our minds. But for me, another game that really sold out in the Premier League was the Kumasi Asante Kotoko game against the Karela United in the Unasi. That had its own kind of buzz because Karela were undefeated at home, and Kumasi Asante Kotoko went and defeated them there. So that was a big game for me as well. We've had highs and lows. Generally, I think we had the excitement. Accra Hearts of Oak and the way things have gone for them itself engineered a lot. Great Olympics brought a lot to the competition as well. I mean, you can't take anything away from them, from social media to the important wins they had over Asante Kotoko and Accra Hearts of Oak and all. It really putting a lot. Generally, there were some disappointments, but I'll say that from a journalist point of view and covering the games, if we didn't have the issues that we're seeing in the latter part of the season come up, I would have almost rated this season maybe 95. But because of the issues that we've had come up,
what are those issues, George? What are those issues that we have?
The kind of percentage I want to give for the Ghana Premier League. Yes, I think it affects that. And I know, Na is a lawyer, and she wants to be very, very careful with everything she says so that nobody can come and disturb her with contempt or anything. But truly, one of the lawyers I admire in the country, and of course for her contribution, the normalization committee and everything. But now I really believe that after those videos we saw, there is no other way but we must punish people. I mean, there's no other way. I won't accept anything because there's no way any of the managers or players can explain something to the contrary way. That's just my opening comments on this.
Now, George, what videos are you talking about here? Is it the Ashanti Gold Inter Allies game?
Yeah, the Ashanti Gold Inter Allies game. And the Ashanti Gold Inter Allies game was the height of it. And there are a lot of hints along the way that some other games were not played in the competitive spirit. And it brings us back to what the Ghana Football Association is trying to do in terms of creating a system and a structure that prevents this from happening. So I know we have cameramen at every Ghana Premier League grounds. Do we review the games? Are the commissioners putting in the kind of reports that will alert the Ghana Football Association that this game was not played well or that? I mean, it's a whole thing that we have to look at. The Ghana Football Association and the Ghana Premier League is not in isolation when it comes to the problems that you have because of betting and all of those things. Other leagues are also facing it, but it's more about the kind of system that you put in place to ensure that you don't see what we saw in the game involving Ashanti Gold and Inter Allies, and there's no way to explain it. There's just no way to explain it. We really need to see something really, really done and the right way.
Let me get Nas' views on that particular game. Shadelia talked about allegations of match fixing. But now, finally, I'm sure you've seen the videos, and you've heard the player coming out to say he decided to engage in those own goals because he had heard someone saying they were going to lose by 5-1. He was against betting, so he tried destroying the bet. Now, how does that make you feel, bearing in mind that he says somebody said they were going to be beaten by 5-1? They're already down by 5 goals. and he decides to mess things up, is that not enough grounds to say something may have happened?
For me, at this point, I can only comment on what I have seen on social media. Again, these things just happened, barely 24 hours or 48 hours ago. So I think we should all exercise patience. George made a very salient point by saying that the GFA always has its own cameramen on the ground, and I believe that whatever happened, they may have captured it. There's a match, I think there's a match review committee in place. I'm sure they would watch the footages. And then, as for the gentleman, for me, I am a little curious because I guess he must realize that the statement he made is more or less killing his own career. Career is committing career suicide. So perhaps maybe when he's called before whatever committee or judicial body to come and explain, I guess the panel would listen to him, and it's up to them to decide whether they believe his story or otherwise. I would exercise patience again and say at this point, they are mere allegations. It's true, we've seen footages, but let's just all be patient and wait for the review committee to watch
I know how
let
the
the
lawyers can work
DP do their work.
Well, I mean, of course, while we are all being patient, and of course, as a lawyer, I can understand these things. But you've talked about, the fact that this could be a career-threatening comment. Help us understand why you think those comments may just affect his career.
For me, even if, and again, I cannot even confirm whether the gentleman did in fact say so. I don't
say
know.
It or not, yes.
But
he said it, yes.
I were a club manager, I would not buy such a player. I would not buy such a player. That is me. Because I don't think I would trust him enough to field him in any game my team is playing. But that is me.
Okay. All right.
As to whether the reasons he's assigned for his actions are true or not, I do not know. And again, I would rather wait and see the outcome of this thing. It could be that, look, I don't know what conversation. We don't even know whether really or truly the allegations we are hearing are true. I'm a bit, I'm finding it a little difficult to say more.
Yes, because you want to hear from him also. I can understand. You want to hear from the player.
And let's see what happens.
Well,
because I don't want to somehow, my comments to prejudice anything that would, any actions that the proper body to deal with such matters will do. So I am really at pains to comment on this issue. I'd rather not. I want to wait and see.
All right. Nanote, thank you very, very much for joining us.
Yeah,
we're very grateful.
Winston.
Yes.
Winston.
Yes, George. I can hear you, George. Go ahead.
Winston, I was just thinking that there are a few questions that we need to ask, and I agree that we don't need to prejudice this one. But for me, away from what happened in the Ashanti Gold and Inter Allies game, there are a few questions that we have to ask. For instance, the compliance and integrity officer of the Ghana Football Association. I don't know whether all the things that have been happening have come to his notice. There are a number of games where we saw, some dodgy goals, some very questionable play. We didn't hear anything from the Compliance and Integrity Officer of the Ghana Football Association. Did he only react because these videos had gone viral? Because remember, the game was played on Saturday. I'll give them the benefit of doubt that, the game was played on Saturday and it was played, outside Accra. So it would have taken some time for footages to get to them and all of that. And so they probably got to see that on social media. But there have been other games where so many things have happened. So I'm just wondering, is this the only game that has come to the attention of the FA's Compliance and Integrity Officer? Is this the only game, really? Okay. Because we have had issues here. And why did it come right after the social media? Because social media really went hard on it. There was a hashtag fixed GPL, and everyone was calling out the FA. and the FA had no option than to come up with a statement. So that is another thing. And you see, for me, aside what we do with the Ashanti Gold and Inter-Allies thing, because betting has become a part of the game and there's nothing you can do about it, and that there are betting companies even sponsoring clubs, it is really not about whether you have betting or you don't have betting. It is, what are you doing to ensure that, one, people who are directly related or directly connected to the game don't find themselves in it. There was a situation of this Martin Demichelis. You remember that story where there was a whole trace that someone in his family had gone to bet on the game, and therefore he was part of it, and they forced him to confess and all of that. So I'm interested in what kind of system and what kind of structure have we put in place. Clubs do this everywhere in the world. We have heard of big match fixing scandals that have hit big clubs like Juventus. You go to South America, so it is not that it's not there, it is there. Clubs will always look at the opportunity. If there's an opportunity and there's no strong system, they'll exploit it. So we, one, need to punish those we need to punish when it comes out that one or two guys are guilty, of which I really think. And the next thing is that we have to create a system that makes it very, very difficult. A rigorous system, and not a system that will only react when some videos are flooding, elsewhere. It's a system that should be able to react immediately. There are questionable things, and I'll ask questions of the match commissioners too. So we need to hear from, because there are various chains. Like I said, it's a chain, and there are various levels on which this must be dealt with. Number one, the match commissioner is there, and he has to put together his report and send to the Ghana Football Association. In all those questionable games we had, did that go to the Ghana Football Association? Did the Ghana Football Association receive it and feel there was nothing wrong with it? Even if the match commissioner has put in his report that nothing was wrong, because the FA has cameramen on the grounds, the FA have the videos themselves to watch it. Do they review it? Because we have a match review panel. If all that has been done, how many times have they called to question one or two of the things to ensure that the clubs are not doing it? Because it is really difficult to blame and say that there's a body called the Ghana Football Association that you are blaming. Everyone at the Ghana Football Association, Winston, is part of football. There is nobody at the Ghana Football Association who is not affiliated to a club or the other, because you cannot even get into power if you don't have the club or if you're not affiliated. So the Ghana Football Association is the same as the clubs. The football people represent the Ghana Football Association. So it is important that you create a system that makes it very, very difficult. And that is why once you have such a bad issue this way, even though there are more, and I expect a lot more investigations to be done, there has to be a strong statement and a strong posture by the Ghana Football Association that will send a massive warning. We are talking about just Ghana Premier League. We have not gone to Division 1. We haven't gone to Division 2. We have not even checked the Women's League. Look, the fact that we haven't had things flooding on social media does not mean that they are not happening. And it's important that there is a constant review of all the games that we play. Because now look at the work that we do for the Premier League. Look at the way people are enjoying the Premier League or enjoy the Premier League. Look at the kind of programs and the kind of airtime we have donated to the Ghana Premier League. People spent money, went out there. I saw big men join the Manchester Derby, just fighting to get into the stadium. People went to line up, outside the Accra Sports Stadium, outside the Accra Hearts of Oak Secretariat to get a ticket to go and watch a game. People love their game. And this is something that should not happen. The Ghana Football Association's total response to this will tell us a lot. And what is really sad is that after all the hype that we have had this season, after all that we have done, corporate bodies were interested. I know corporate bodies who wanted to buy 1,000 tickets, who wanted to buy 1,005 tickets, who wanted to bring their CEOs. I know ministers, I know politicians, I know vice presidents who went to sit down there to watch games. I know the kind of coverage that the Ghana Premier League has had, even here in the UK. We cannot allow one or two or three people to destroy it. And you see, it's interesting. And this is where I agree with now that the investigation must go on. Sometimes it is a player who has gone to do his thing and it affects the whole club. Sometimes it's even an outsider somewhere who has fixed the match. Sometimes it's the referee going there to ensure. And don't be fooled. There are times when it's about the score lines. There are times when it's about a red card and yellow card. At times when it's about a penalty. All sorts of betting. Okay. And I'm urging the Ghana Football Association that, you know what, let's go to the betting companies, and it's easy to track those who have done the betting, those who went to bet more than 2,000, more than 5,000, more than 10,000 Ghana cedis, and you look at the trend, and you can get the people who have gone there to do the betting, and you find where they are or how they are connected to football. It's interesting because at the end of all of this, if the right investigations are done, we will be realizing some interesting trends. Because if you have the people in charge of football involved in this, it's difficult. And I cannot separate the Ghana Football Association from the clubs, because the Ghana Football Association is the clubs. We really need to sit up, and we don't have to allow this to happen again. It is for me, even to see the videos on television and to see it around social media alone, it's disappointing enough to know that now, lawyer Naldo Foley had done her work as a normalization committee to try and get some of these things out of the game, only to make a turnaround after one season and to see this happen. We must not only punish them, weed them out of the system. They cannot be here.
Thank you, George. I'll get back to you. But of course, thank you very much, Naldo Foley Norte, for joining us. But you can get onto Facebook and YouTube at Joy99.7FM and get to watch those goals. I mean, with those goals that we're talking about, Interallies and Ash Gold, the alleged match fixing that we're talking about. But Oregwan Pofo, I mean, you've also been following, you've been covering the league. George has talked about some of the issues of, the allegations of match fixing. Were you at any of the grounds that you probably thought, oh no, this can't be right?
Well, I would say in the beginning, the start of the season, the match between Legon Cities and Ash Gold. And it comes as no surprise that Ash Gold pop up again. And Legon Cities had not won a game in 7 matches. They had changed coach twice, settling, we're not finding the right formula. Ash Gold were high flying, had won with 5 goals, were being Ash Gold close to the top. And then they come to Accra, and Ash Gold lose to Legon Cities 5-2. And then I remember I went to the stadium with a colleague, and I told him, this doesn't feel right. I don't understand how Ash Gold, who've been playing so well, come to Legon Cities and lose by 5-2. It's almost as if they didn't want to play anymore. And
or maybe Legon Cities outplayed them.
It's strange because it's almost like Man United starting the season well, and then you have a whole city or some team promoted or starting up, and then all of a sudden you can lose the odd game, but to lose by 5-2 came out to be a bit strange. And at that time it didn't really click, but as these videos came out yesterday, information also came that apparently information had been received prior to that game in the 5-2 that there were going to be goals in that game, and a betting company sent that out to a fellow journalist that they traced one of the bets and saw that there was a correct score of 5-2 which had 10,000 cedis placed on it. And that 5-2 scoreline came in. Of course, all of this is alleged, but from my personal experience, it tallied, because I remember that I was at that ground and I saw that game and it did not feel right. And it's not the first time. You've seen some really strange matches in the Ghana Premier League. In one game, you can see a keeper, high-flying, superhuman. And in the next game, you see this same keeper, making some atrocious mistakes and gifting away some goals. So it's difficult when it comes to the subject of match fixing. It's a very sensitive issue because, look, if Musa did not score an own goal yesterday, nobody could have said the match was fixed. Because, see, there was a point, I think Ash Gold's 4th goal, the keeper caught the ball and threw it to the striker. But you still cannot say it's match fixing because it happens in football. So I think Musa has really helped.
Let me just come in and say that, look, that match is particularly, the highlights of the game is currently on Facebook. And so just get onto our Facebook page, Joy99.7FM, and get to see things for yourself. We want you to see everything and be able to decide whether or not you think that match was fixed or not. But, look, I have seen Van der Sar.
Yeah.
Man United, West Brom, going to catch the ball. He grabs the ball, hits his chest, and by the next time he turns, the ball is in the net.
Yeah, and you see, that's what I'm saying. Mistakes happen. And
but let me say that Gary L. Smith has joined the conversation. Gary, good morning.
Good morning.
I wasn't expecting you, but I can understand. It's a very exciting conversation. I would get to you shortly, Gary. But first, let me finish with Oreku. Yes, Oreku, you're making the point.
Yeah, so as I was saying, mistakes do happen. But, I have one interesting thought that was running through my mind since yesterday up until this point as to how exactly we can fix this situation. And, there's this philosophy that if you want to solve problems, you have to get to the real cause of it. If you have a child stealing meat in the soup at night, you need to understand that maybe it's because the child is hungry. And then once you get that perspective, you say that, okay, I'm going to feed the child more and give him more. And then you see the end result of the child not stealing from the soup anymore. Now, with this situation, I think, let me borrow this computer science tool. We found ourselves in an endless loop. Now, an endless loop is A depends on B and B depends on A to move. And so none of them are moving. Now, here's the case in point. We have a Ghana Premier League where the winner gets 250,000 Ghana cedis. Second, 150,000 cedis. And third, somewhere around 70,000 cedis or so. Once you don't finish in the top three, you don't get any money from the FA. Now, the other avenue is Star Times money. And Star Times gave $700,000 for all 18 clubs this season. If you divide that equally, that would be around $41,000. So that's 250,000 Ghana cedis. Forget the Hearts of Oak, forget the Kotoko and the Wafa who finished top three and got that money. Let's take a mid-table club like Ash Gold. Ash Gold will get that $41,000, which is about 250,000 Ghana cedis. Now, Ash Gold traveling to Accra to face Legon cities and going back and paying salaries and taking care of food will spend close to about 30,000 alone that week. 30,000 cedis for one match. Imagine doing this for away games, 17 of them. We don't even have to do the math to know that the 250,000 Ghana cedis they're getting is way below the belt. So these clubs are now in a situation where if I get an opportunity to get more money, I would go. And this is by no means justifying what they've done. But if we are to solve this problem, we need to understand why they are doing this. Now, the problem is that for the FA to get more money, these clubs would have to stop these acts for a long time for the reputation to be fixed before corporate bodies invest. Okay. But they're not able to stop and sustain because they're not getting enough money. And this is why I talk about the endless loop. How do we ensure that in the short term, these clubs get enough money to keep themselves, and then we do not see all of these acts in the league, it gets a good name, and then we get sponsorship and we rise together. And that is the problem that we
I like the endless loop analogy, but you can also join us on Facebook and on YouTube at Joy99.7FM. We're streaming that particular game where, you can watch the match live, the highlights of the game, and also get to watch the conversation. But Gary R. Smith, let me get to you. We've been talking about, the things that stood out in the just ended league. Gary, what stood out for you? And do you also have concerns about match fixing, allegations of match fixing?
I think George wanted to make a point. He's been pining to get your attention.
Yes.
George.
I wanted to make a point.
You should have raised your hand. Sorry, go ahead.
I wanted to make a point about Oreku Ampofo's analysis about the fact that the monies are not enough for the clubs and that perhaps that's pushing them. Let me announce to the clubs this. Sponsorship money for the Ghana Premier League, we are praying that it comes in. It's going to take some time, clearly, from what we are seeing. Gate proceeds is not really working. The only current source of income or revenue for the clubs is selling their players. Is when the club is able to sell their player, that's when they make money. Now, if they sit down there and thinking that they want to go down the way of betting to sell players, no club in the world wants to do anything with players who are in betting. Josie Taylor has finished the Ghana Premier League as a top scorer at 18 goals. And if another club wants to come to buy him from another league, question is he even convinced that the league was competitive enough? Betting is a no panacea for problems that you are having, because it will even make the problems worse. Imagine what's going to happen to the boys who have come out to grant interviews and everything. Betting is totally something that every club around the world doesn't want to have anything to do with. The last thing you want to do is to want to have some betting chains hanging around your neck. So our clubs should understand that betting, unless a system is so weak that you are not caught, may give you the money. But when the system is strong, like these days, people take their phones to the grounds and take all of these things. It's really, really, really difficult. That's why I come back to the same point of the Ghana Football Association creating a very good system to arrest its own people.
Great. Let me get to you, Gary. Hello, Gary.
I think that much of the groundwork has been laid by the speakers before me, and this was just to build up. But you asked what stood out this season, and I think that the hunger for football was and has been very, very much apparent from the kickoff of the season until the final day of the season. We've seen it in the illegal ways in which people have broken COVID protocols across the country. You know, I'm sure you remember some of it made national headlines at the time when the government had clearly said that, you know, the cases in COVID were surging, were increasing, and so the country itself was trying to contain it. And then we saw at various places like Takwa and all of it, you know, where it's caused some national outrage, causing the government to, at a point, ban fans from going to the stadia. And then when people felt like the cases were going down, there was an outcry for the ban to be lifted. And then the government said, no, we can't do an outright lifting. And then we did 25%. Even then, we flouted regulations. The biggest case in point was the Gamashi Derby, or the Manchester Derby, as they call it. When the Olympics and Hearts played, the gates was broken through, was breached, and we had an almost full capacity stadium and so on and so forth. So the hunger for football was quite apparent. It was also clear that the quality of the football has increased a bit. It was not across board, but we saw a bit more quality, you know, than we saw elsewhere. I don't know if one of the factors was because, say, the Accra Stadium, which is an okay pitch by Ghana standards, was the home of at least about 5 teams at a point in time, and so on and so forth. Even though we could do far more to improve the quality of the Ghana Premier League, television coverage this season was more than we've ever had from Star Times, because, you know, things forced them to do better. I mean, we had a show with Ketu Kraku where he admitted that some of the quality of the games, especially those being broadcast in the northern sector, were not great. Star Times brought in new equipment, and so the quality increased marginally. For the first time, we saw Star Times do a double header and then a quadruple header. That is to say, they broadcast 2 games at the same time, and on the final day of the season, they broadcast 4 games at the same time, also on their network. So these are small gains that we made. I mean, I could speak of media coverage being at an all-time high. Look, this season, the Ghana Premier League was what it was because of media coverage. There was incredible media coverage on radio. Radio stations across the country broke protocol and tradition. I mean, Joy Sports, for instance, did Ghana Premier League coverage on weekdays. You know, we took over time that would have been used to broadcast the 6 p.m. news to do games, and we took time for Ghana Connect to broadcast. Other stations in Accra also went above board to do features. Some of the television stations had Ghana Premier League only shows, which you didn't see at first, and so on and so forth. Social media was awash with all kinds of coverage, you know, so those were marginal gains. And then we come to the unsavory bit. Unfortunately, the match fixing that we saw, or alleged match fixing that we saw in the final few days, was actually Winston, to be fair, something that came very, very late in the season. But as it stands, the bad news is threatening to erode every bit of gains that we've made this season, you know. So that would be my assessment, that we, as media, of course, we like to sensationalize, especially the bad news, because we say that, if we don't highlight it, it will never go away. But there were really good stories from the Ghana Premier League that, if we wanted to highlight, we could also touch on. Officiating was largely good. In fact, but at the end of the first round, and maybe George and Rick will back me up on this, we were patting ourselves on the back on the really, really good standards of officiating. Then in the second round, you know, the media took to blowing some of the bad officiating out of proportion. But I think that if we be fair to ourselves, officiating standards have increased with the backdrop that in every of the advanced leagues in the world, there's always, a complaint about this referee not calling a VRA decision right, or giving a red card or a yellow card or an whatever it is, So I think that on the balance of everything, we've had a pretty decent season. The only big challenge right now is for us to sort out this specter of match fixing that is rearing, that is threatening to rear its ugly head, at our league, at a time when we really need everybody on board. And honestly, that love was being brought back, honestly.
Great. And let me get to Henry Asantichum, who's spokesperson for the Ghana Football Association. He's also joined us. And Henry, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, Winston. Thanks for having me.
Great, Henry. So this particular footage of Interlice versus Ashanti Gold, has that gotten to your attention and that of the FA? Any investigations being commenced? What's the FA's position on it? It's been 48 hours, but I'm sure it's gotten to you. I'm asking if it's gotten to your attention.
Yeah, good morning, Winston. Yes, it's gotten to the attention of the Ghana Football Association. Yesterday, we released an official statement condemning the act, and then officially, we've also written to the two clubs to give us their side of the story. The integrity officer of the GFA has begun delving deep into this matter. Obviously, the things will be done behind closed doors. We need to engage, speak to people. Fortunately for us, one of the players who was hugely or heavily involved has spoken on radio, and so I think it will be also fair to speak to him and get his account of whatever happened. Team officials will be spoken to or will be talked to. We have already written to Interlice. I think this morning they have responded to the letter we wrote to them saying for Ashanti Gold. We are liaising with the security services. We sent an official letter to the security services yesterday, which is also being worked on. So yes, a lot of things have happened since the story broke on Sunday evening. We cannot put everything on radio, but yes, we are working on getting the culprits to book, and whatever it is, we are very, very optimistic that the BNI and the Ghana Police Service will help us in finding lasting solutions to some of these problems in our football.
Now, Gary makes the point that at the end of the first round, everybody was excited about the Ghana Premier League. We saw traditional media covering it even on weekdays. But at the latter stages of it, then we have this. Would you say this has affected the integrity of the Ghana Premier League?
Well, you in a competition like this, let me emphasize that since 2017, we've had issues. We haven't really had credible champions since 2017 when Diana Stars won the league, Asante Kotoko won the FA Cup. In 2018, we couldn't complete our season because of number 12. In 2019, during the normalization era, we played a different competition, and it wasn't like the Premier League. So ordinarily, you would expect to complete a season without issues. Yes, the last few days have not gone well, first of all, for the product, and then the image and integrity of the competition. You hear all sort of, rumors before games, and sometimes it turns out to be so. Unfortunately, we do not have our mechanisms, and for that matter, we tried as much as possible before the start of the season to educate our members on integrity issues. And for the first time, we have an integrity and compliance officer of the Ghana Football Association. Before the start of the season, we educated members. We gave them materials on integrity and compliance issues. We made a hotline available to the public, consumers of the product, and direct stakeholders of our industry to make available any issue about integrity, bribery, and whatever. When we began the season, there were a couple that filtered in. But I think getting to the end of the season, once people knew the winner of the competition, even when it came to those three teams that will be relegated, Inter-Allies got relegated about 4 weeks ago, but we still did not know the other two teams that will join them until the last day of the competition. So our ears were on the ground. I'm sure that maybe we were taken by surprise in certain situations or certain match venues, and that is what that is what has become the unfortunate news and unfortunate story that is kind of tainted the image of the product. We put in a lot of hard work from the start of the season, training of referees, training of officials, training of players, even speaking to players on integrity and compliance issues. We did a lot before, during the season. It's unfortunate that this thing happened on the final day of the competition or getting to the end of the season. We will continue, like I said, to deal with the culprits. Now, investigations are underway, so we cannot say much, but I can tell you for a fact that those who are culpable will be severely punished.
Okay. Well, so that'd be a bit of a low, but let's look at the highs for you. I mean, after all the hard work that you put in, what would you say worked for you in the Ghana Premier League?
Well, let me commend our stakeholders. The media played a major role, a huge role in the successful organization of the immediate past season. We have 4 games in the men's elite competition to end the season. Hopefully on August 8th, we'll play the final of the MTN FA Cup. But it's been challenging, Winston. I remember in one meeting with the government's COVID-19 response team, we nearly threw in the towel because they wouldn't budge, or they wouldn't just buy into our idea of bringing back football when COVID numbers or COVID active cases were on a high. So we nearly threw in the towel. We explored different options. At one point, we wanted to play northern, south sector and southern sector. We needed to go back to our sponsors to see if indeed that was possible. But finally, the government decided that, okay, our wish will be granted. And so we were given that opportunity of permission to play behind closed doors, and clubs wouldn't comply. So I heard Gary mention that in certain cases we have to crack the whip. So we closed down about 6 or 5 venues because they did not strictly adhere to the COVID protocols. I remember we punished Brecum, Chelsea, Techima 11 Wonders, Karela United, and then also Accra Gate Olympics, and then Midiema. All these clubs suffered severe punishments because they did not strictly adhere to the COVID protocols. But in the end, once government decided that 25%, I mean, when the new minister took office, we went back to him, gave him different proposals, and finally we were granted our wish to admit fans into the stadium. It wasn't even 50%, but I mean, we felt if indeed we have 25, it's better than none. So that's what we worked with, and in the course of the season, there have been a lot of positive things to pick from the product. The fact that patronage was on a high. You get to league centers. I remember I got to Takwa for one game between Midiema and Asante Kotoko, and the number of spectators who were behind the gates were more than those who had made their way into the stadium. So there was that demand for the product, and for me, I think that's what excites me, because we've been into different kinds of situations. The product suffered bad PR in the last 3 years. So once you are trying to bring back the love and you get to league centers and see some of these things, it's quite exciting and highly encouraging. So yes, media coverage too was on a high, both on traditional media and social media. For the first time, we had more games on television. In the first round, we had over 50 games on TV. In the second round, we have more. So the product is like the product visibility was on a high. it's one of the things that we've also lacked in the past, where you are looking for the product and there is either less visibility or no visibility at all. So we improved in that area. Officiating, there were issues. Yes, the first round was much better compared to what we saw in the second round, but these are human beings who ordinarily may have their problems, domestic problems, and sometimes it translates onto what we saw on the field of play. So I think organization too wasn't bad. We had our own issues and challenges here and there, but in the end we pulled it off, and we are super excited that we've been able to package this season in this manner. Hopefully we build on the challenges and the weaknesses. We look at the positives and look at how best we can improve in those areas, and maybe next season will be much better than what we witnessed this time.
Well, Henry Asante-Trum, thank you very, very much for joining us. We're very grateful. He's spokesperson for the Ghana Football Association. George Addo Jr., Gary L. Smith, both editors of the Joy Sports. Thank you very much, guys, for joining us. I'll keep a record here. When we return after these few messages, we get to activate the phone line. So you also get to tell us what were the highs and lows.
It's a new day.
All it takes is one bad event to affect the things that are of value to you. That home you've built, the business that was bred from years of your hard work, or even that dream car that you finally call your own. But with one bank, you can conveniently protect your properties against future financial losses. So be rest assured knowing your properties are protected under CalBank motto, homeowners and SME insurance policies. Always stay one step ahead with CalBank. For more information, call us toll-free on 0800 500 500. You can also visit any of our branches or agents near you to sign up. Take that one right decision today and insure while you bank. Underwritten by Saham Insurers, a member of the Salam Group.
CalBank, forward together.
CalBank, forward together.
Come,
Charlie, right now, dear, the printing business slow. Power problems every day. I'm not able to meet client demand, and it's a big worry.
Charlie.
But Charlie, you actually bought that heavy generator as a backup power. Business is good for you.
Thank you, bro, but I didn't buy it. I rented it.
Sir, away.
From the generator experts, of course, Anointed Electrical Engineering Services has added rentals to their wonderful services.
So you mean, apart from the sale of quality generators and spare parts with their impeccable 247 after sales maintenance and services, they also do rentals?
Exacto, man. Anointed has a wide range of generators from 5 to 1,000 kVA ready for rentals, my bro.
I see. They are still at number 77 Anointed House off the Odokomalam Road in Accra, right?
And in Kumasi, Anointed is in the City Style building in Amakum near Ashfm. And all Anointed branches across the country are still operating. Call their hotline 0243 480 334. Anointed Electrical Engineering Services. Still the generator experts.
Myself and Kweku grew up together. We were always talking about vacations and exploring some parts of the world, but I never expected it to be so soon. Until he gave me a phone call yesterday and was like,
Charlie, I dey go chill for Dubai this August too.
I thought it was one of his jokes, so I asked, but you could feel afford exploring Dubai. Then he replied,
oh yeah, Adansi Travels is making it possible. So now I can explore Dubai at a very moderate fee.
It's your time to be part of this exciting trip to Dubai from 8th August 2021. Experience 8 fun-filled days exploring Dubai with Kwame Eugene for only 8,000 Ghana cedis. Pay the rest in bit. Visit www.adansitravels.com or call 0595 500 817 to book now. Adansi Travels. Fuel life's beauty.
Hi folks, there are many things to love about Ghana.
I love my market. Yes, oh yeah, look.
Hey, stop. My paddy Ghana, they jump.